the ranking Republican on the House Ethics Committee, Representative Tom Kuntz, is up next on OTR. Our lead story, the Republican U.S. Senate race gets ugly. Around the OTR table, Kyle Malin, Clara Hendrickson, and Colin Jackson. Sit in with us as we get the inside out off the record.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Martin Waymeyer, a full-service strategic communications agency, partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and public policy engagement. Learn more at martinwaymeyer.com. And now, this edition of Off the Record with Tim Skubic.
Thank you very much. Welcome to this holiday weekend edition of Off the Record, and we're taping on Thursday morning, so whatever happens on Friday that's important, you won't hear it. That's just a forewarning, okay? The U.S. Senate race, Republican side, starting to get a little ugly.
Well, it could be. I mean, Sandy Penciller, who is running to get the nomination against Mike Rogers, who is the presumed frontrunner, the polls show him way up. He is going on the attack because he has to. He's in the single digits somewhere, and Mike Rogers is got the Trump endorsement, and he's really got a glide path to the nomination right now. So if you're running for the Senate like Sandy Penciller is, or Justin Amash, or Dr. Sherry, who was on the show last week, you got to go after the frontrunner.
Well, how do you account for the fact that some of the Trumpers want Mr. Trump to undo what he did with Mr. Rogers?
Well, I think that's the thing. If you get the campaign text from Mike Rogers, everything you get every few days, I've been getting is a new former Trump administration official is endorsing Mike Rogers, a new person from that realm endorsing Mike Rogers. And I think that as much as some of the people from the Trump loyalists want him to undo that endorsement, Mike Rogers is doing the best he can to show, no, I'm in this world, I have the bona fides, and I have the support of the former president. And I think that's what his path is, at least to the nomination.
I think the big question right now is it feels a little bit like Groundhog Day with 2022, some uncertainty over the signatures that some of the Republican senatorial candidates filed. Of course, the Michigan Democratic Party flagged potential issues after the challenge deadline, but we're going to face another, potentially fraught certification to get on the ballot, just like we saw 2 years ago.
Well, clearly the Trump endorsement is just gold, solid gold in the primary. Do we see a pivot? Let's assume Mr. Rogers gets the nomination. Does he do a pivot away from Mr. Trump for the general election?
See, I'm not quite sure, because I don't think Trump is running as a different kind of candidate in 2024 than he was in 2020 or even 2020 or 2016. He's going for the same kind of issues that I think Mike Rogers believes he can win on, whether it's immigration, EVs. He sees Trump and Rogers' path to victory being on a very similar path. So I don't think he pivots away from Trump, because if Trump doesn't win Michigan, Mike Rogers probably doesn't win either. It's not as if Rogers is going to outdo Trump, and I just don't see it. So I think they're kind of joined at the hip, whether they like it or not, and that their success path is linked.
Well, isn't there a problem with independent voters and would-be Republicans who are not happy with Mr. Trump?
I mean, that's the thing. If you're the Democrats trying to run opposition on Mike Rogers, that's something you want to highlight as much as possible, that tie them as much as possible to the worst parts of the Trump administration from Democrats' viewpoint, and some of the people in the Trump orbit that have now endorsed Rogers, that Rogers is now Senate, like I said, promoting these endorsements from. At the same time, though, from the Rogers perspective, in terms of this primary, he's not really referencing Sandy Penciller or Justin Amash in his campaign materials. He's going after Alyssa Slotkin because he's running like the presumed frontrunner. He's running like he doesn't have a lot of Republican competition in this primary challenge. So I think, for all intents and purposes, a lot of his sights are already on that general instead of this primary.
So what happened to the debate on the island?
It totally fell apart.
I don't think it was ever together.
Well, it sounded like the Detroit Regional Chamber has some assurances from Slotkin and Rogers that they'd be there, and the other candidates, they commissioned this poll, which, surveys are not cheap, so they had to make a little bit of an investment to make sure that they were inviting the top polling candidates. And then I forget exactly what order happened, like what happened when, but basically Slotkin pulled out, Rogers pulled out, and they were operating under the premise that one of them would be there.
Well, Slotkin said, I'll be there if there's 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans. Yeah. And that wasn't going to happen.
Well, Rogers pulled the plug. I mean, that's flat out. Mike Rogers did not want to debate. The reason he didn't want to debate is because what we've been talking about so far in this show. Sandy Pensler is punching up. He is way down in the polls. Rogers is going to win this primary, in all likelihood, is going to win this primary. He doesn't want to subject himself to being attacked by Sandy Pensler or Justin Amash if he wanted to show up, or Sherry O'Donnell if she was even invited in the first place.
She wasn't.
So, you know,
And was upset.
so that's Sandy Pensler then attacking Mike Rogers, and then he was afraid then that Slotkin starts attacking him too as kind of a preemptive on the general election.
All of a sudden we got a 2-on-1 break.
And then, yeah, exactly, and he becomes a punching bag. So he says no, and then Slotkin says no because Rogers is not there, and before you know it, the whole thing goes.
Mr. Biden in town for the NAACP. How did that go?
Well, he was in Detroit for his first campaign stop in the city this year, obviously a critical city for his reelection. He spoke for about 12 minutes, and you know, this is a crowd of who's who in Michigan Democratic politics, so it's a really supportive crowd. I think the big question is, does his message resonate beyond the halls of Huntington Place to voters across the state? If you look at the data, in 2020, Biden underperformed compared to Clinton in 2016. When you look at the vote share in most majority black cities, I spoke to a senior advisor with the Biden campaign in Michigan a couple weeks ago, and he basically said we cannot afford to repeat that result this year.
Did he hit it out of the park?
He definitely got a warm reception. Unfortunately, where I was sitting, the press table was a little bit muddled. So maybe people closer got to
have you in the bathroom or what?
Exactly, like lateral to the stage. But I really think the big takeaway here is sort of, as he's homing in on this message of preserving American democracy, he's kind of recognizing some of the shortcomings of that message, particularly with black voters. He had this line that America has always strived to achieve equality. We're not there yet, but Trump would turn his back on that ideal.
So Mr. Biden is doing okay with the African-American vote, but he doesn't have the numbers that they want. Is that a fair assessment at this read?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's why he's at the NAACP gathering this weekend and why he has to come back to Detroit several times. You know, 80% of things are just being there. 80% of life is just being there. And just being there. It didn't even matter what he said. It didn't even matter that in the transcript there were 8 things in there that were factually inaccurate, that were corrected by the White House itself. That doesn't necessarily matter. What mattered is that he was there and he shared what he has done for the black community during his tenure and what he did as vice president. And he reminds people what he has done and what he will continue to do. And that's what they want to hear. That's not what they got in 2016. So the black vote didn't show up for Hillary Clinton. But that's what he did do in 2020. And that's why it showed up for him in 2020. He's just got to keep doing that. He should be fine.
All right, no-fault car insurance. The Speaker of the House and the governor have been singled out as the roadblock to reform.
Yes. So this is something that passed the Senate a long time ago now. I believe it was late last year when it passed the Senate. It's been sitting in the House this whole time in committee. The supporters of no-fault reform have been pushing for different meetings, for committee hearings on this legislation. It still hasn't happened, and they're getting more and more frustrated.
There's an anniversary coming up. It was last July that the Supreme Court said you got it wrong. So why aren't they moving it?
I'm not sure. I mean, and notably, when the Senate passed it, they did so over the objections of Whitmer's insurance director, who said that this legislation would raise insurance costs. And Senate Democrats, with the support of some Republicans, notably, basically said, you know, we're moving forward with it. We think that this is a fix to the fix that is needed. I mean, whether you like it or not, this democratically controlled legislature has proven that it can take on sort of big transformational policies, 40 years of pent-up priorities. We heard that so often. And now we're starting to see the list of things that will be left on the table starting to take shape. And it's looking like auto insurance is one of those.
For people that have not been following this is critical for the people that have been catastrophically injured because their benefits have been cut tremendously and they want those back.
Well, they want the reimbursement rates for the providers to increase so that there will be more providers providing a lot more care and providing better care. But it's like anything else. If you increase the service and improve the service and increase the price, that means the price for insurance goes up. And that's exactly what the Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, doesn't want to hear. He's got a constituency in Detroit who still pays a ridiculous amount of money for insurance, $3,500 a year for folks, $3,500 a year to to do auto insurance. And so he's of the approach, hey, if we're going to fix auto insurance, well, we're going to have to flatten rates for the folks in Detroit. We're going to have to take premiums and we got to squash them down. Well, when you do that, then you spread the cost of insurance out into the suburbs. And now the folks in Oakland County or Macomb County or suburban Wayne County, all of a sudden their prices go up. And the Democrats don't need that because that's where their competitive, vulnerable House incumbents are. So they can't be on the hook for voting for something that could increase auto rates when the governor used that as a huge campaign, I gotcha, during the re-elect when she said, hey, I decreased your auto insurance rate. I gave you that check. You remember that check? She doesn't want to have to go back on that. It becomes a big political mess. That's why it's getting kicked into the next session.
Representative Brenda Carter out of Pontiac was in a work group, and it looked, the soundings I was getting is that they were making progress. Did they take it away from her?
So that's the thing. It seems like if you talk to, depending on who you talk to, that's the question differs. If you talk to the folks that are advocating for the survivors that are looking for some changes to the no-fault law, they're saying that they've had productive conversations with Representative Carter and that they had hopes. And they're saying that from their understanding of it, at least, the speaker is taking more of a personal interest in it and is now kind of guiding the way for that. If you talk to the speaker's folks, they're saying that that's a mischaracterization of what's happening and that he's still trusting his committee chairs to go forward. It's kind of reminiscent of what you heard from the past from Republicans when Jason Wentworth was Speaker of the House, and when the no-fault folks were also frustrated that those hadn't received a hearing yet. But you heard from his messaging team that he has full trust in his committee chairs, and it's up to them as well. So it's kind of a matter of, okay, well, who really has the football at the moment?
So Adam Hollier wanted to be a congressperson, and apparently he ain't going to do it.
Well, it doesn't really look very good. The Wayne County clerk's office came back and said that he did not gather the 1,000 signatures needed to make the ballot, that his campaign was a victim of what happened in the gubernatorial race of 2022, where there was widespread fraud among circulators who were paid to collect these signatures. He has fallen victim to a situation that some other congressional candidates could have in their future. That is, they just didn't have the signatures because they didn't fly spec them after they collected them, which seems almost unexcusable after what happened 2 years ago.
Let's add incredible.
Yeah. And I mean, let's look at this district, right? Like in 2022, you had a very crowded field. The black vote split. For the first time in nearly 70 years, Detroit ends up with no black representative in Washington, D.C. Now this year, you have Democrats, very prominent Democrats, including Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, Joe Tate, coming out to endorse in a Democratic primary to unseat an incumbent. And Adam Hollier doesn't get enough signatures because, as he says it, he put his trust in someone who, basically, yeah.
That's an unforced error.
It's 1,000 signatures, unlike the gubernatorial race where you have to collect a lot more.
All right, let's see what happens here. Okay, let's call in our guest now, Mr. Kuntz. Mr. Kuntz, welcome back to Off the Record. Nice to see you on this holiday weekend. Let's cut right to the chase.
I like it.
Whether the Republicans win or not back control of the House, do you think it's time for new leadership in the House Republican caucus?
You know what? I'm focused on majority. I think we need to get that first. I like our chances. We're running downhill. The winds at our back on this one. There's a lot of Democrats that ran as moderates, and their voting records don't show it. So I think before we get into the November 7th election, we need to worry about the November 5th election.
I appreciate that answer, but let me try again.
Please.
Do you mind? Okay.
I would be surprised if you didn't. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. There's been chatter on the street that you are interested in the leadership post.
I've heard that, and again, my focus is on majority.
I understand, but go beyond the fact that you've heard it. When you've heard it, you said, "Guys, knock it off."
We're living in the capital of rumors. There's all, you could hear anything you want to hear. So I don't listen to that. I don't listen to what people say. I heard this and I heard that. My focus are going to be the 59 or 60 people in that room.
Okay, so before I shut up, say for me, I do not want to be Speaker of the House.
I'm willing to serve wherever my caucus wants me.
So that's impossible, yes.
Anything's possible, yes.
Well, let me try this. How do you believe Matt Hall has done as the leader of the House caucus?
You know, he's in a tough spot. He really is. He's in a room full of class presidents. He's trying to herd cats. It's difficult being in the minority. It's all I've known. There has been some tough times. I don't think it's fair to look back. You know, ab initio, we couldn't look back and say, oh, you should have done this back in February. Well, we didn't know that then. We didn't have all that information. So I think he's done a solid job. Perfect? No. I think he's done a solid job. Certainly acceptable. You know, there's no problems. There's no glaring error. Oh my gosh, Matt, this is a huge failure.
Well, when I think about the Republican strategy, especially this past year or the first half of this year when there was a split, 54-54 split in the House, what do you feel like Republicans could have done better to ensure that some of their priorities were being listened to, that Speaker Tate was taking up some of these votes that Republicans were pushing for?
Sure. You know, and I have a lot of respect for Speaker Tate. Joe has always been honest with me. I think we disagree politically just about everywhere. I think communication is a key. You know, if we entrench and we say, I'm going to go after Clara because she wears blue and I'm going to wear red, that's a failure. So you can't communicate enough. And sometimes we're going to agree to disagree, but there are opportunities, let's talk about ethics reforms, that are clearly bipartisan. I'll get you 100 votes if you can put it on the board. So there are things that we could do that are bipartisan, and I don't understand why we didn't. So certainly Speaker Tate doesn't come and say, geez, Tom, what do you think we should do?
Speaking of ethics, you're the minority vice chair of the House Ethics and Oversight Committee.
True.
I don't think a single bill has been reported out of that committee.
The batting average is 0.
Do you see that as a failure?
Oh, it absolutely is a failure. It's frustrating, and I don't understand it. You know, we introduced bills in March of 23. And I have a good relationship. I like to think I have a good relationship with Chair Burns. She's a good person. If you don't like our bills, that's fine. Let's get them out. Let's talk about them. We can make them better. I've never been the smartest person in the room. So if these bills aren't good, let's make them better. We haven't even got a hearing on them. We haven't even talked about them. So they did bring a couple of FOIA bills over from the Senate. Forgive me, it was Senator McBroom and
Senator Moss.
Thank you. We heard testimony on them. We have not voted on them. Not a single bill has come out of the Ethics and Oversight Committee. And that's absolutely a failure.
Well, the one thing that could come out is any type of changes to the financial disclosure law that you all had to adhere to back in April, and then candidates just a few weeks ago. How do you feel like that rollout has gone, and what kind of improvements could be made to that?
You know, it was a glitchy website, and we come back to our governmental efficiency. You know, you knew Secretary of State in November that this was going to be required. That's when the ballot passed, and you had until April 15th to roll it out, and it came out in like late March. You know, that's disappointing. I think it maybe satisfies the letter of the law, but not the intent. So it doesn't matter if I made $1,001 or $1 trillion. You just have to check the box. Yes, I received a paycheck from XYZ. So I don't think the financial disclosure goes far enough.
Do you think there needs to be full disclosure who the donors are and how much money it is?
Yes.
And you don't think that's ever going to happen?
No.
Well, why don't you take on the Democrats? You're going to run ads against them?
There we go. So again, we submitted bills.
There you go.
Well, no, thanks for bringing that point back up for me. We submitted those bills in 2023, and they go to committee to die.
Well, what about the fact that when you guys were in control, you never did anything?
Which is fair. I don't know why. I don't know why they didn't get out of the Senate. They passed the House again with more than 100 votes, and they go to the Senate, and for some reason the Senate Majority Leader didn't like them. I can't answer that. But there's no reason they can't pass now. Let's do something. This is, you know, the perfect time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Well, we didn't do it then. The next best time to plant a tree is today. So I don't know why they didn't move out of the Senate last session. I don't know why they're not moving out of the House this session.
I took a look at your report under Proposal 1. I don't believe you disclosed the amount of income that you earned or the value of your investments. Some lawmakers did voluntarily disclose that.
Like when you say about like the 401, for instance.
Correct.
Yeah.
Why didn't you feel like you needed to?
I probably don't know what they are. I mean, I'm sure we could find them, but I just didn't look into them. So
when you say you want financial transparency to go farther, what does that look like to you?
So I think Tim's point, record every dollar. And this is one, you know, if transparency is going to kill the deal, then let it die. If you're embarrassed to say, this person gave me money, then don't take the money.
Okay.
It's that simple.
I think we're conflating two issues
Okay.
here, though.
Yes.
We're talking about personal financial disclosure, which is how much money you, Representative Kuntz, makes, and then we're talking about how much money that you, as a candidate, makes, and that you're reporting every dollar that you receive.
Right, or your CTE, or your leadership, or the what do they call the corporate account, the C4s.
Yeah. What about those? Those 527s, those C4s. Should that be reported as well?
Absolutely, yes. I think every dollar. And pick a day, and so if you want to say, this person, Michigan State, I'm making this up, Michigan State did not give me any money, but let's say that they did. I think we need to tell them, all right, starting January 1st of 2025, we're going to report every dollar. Starting this day going forward. So if you don't want to be recognized that you gave me money, then don't do it. But yes, I think every dollar that a public official or candidate receives should be recorded.
Are you prepared to vote for the no-fault bill if it gets up?
I'd like to see it because they're still getting, I like the concept of it, but it's still in committee. So we're still getting substitutes to it. It's still changing. I'm not on, is it in DIFS or what committee is it in? I'm not on the committee that it's in.
But the point is, do you think these people need to have their benefits restored?
Yes. And that was, I thought that was a Supreme Court ruling.
Well, they don't order the legislature to do anything.
Well, true, but especially the people, those people in the middle that were injured and they had the coverage from before. I don't understand how that got. I mean, you can't go backwards in time and say I'm going to change the deal.
So, do you think Mr. Tate is sitting on this because he fears the pushback in Detroit? He could lose votes and seats.
Yes.
You're making that charge.
Well, you made that charge. I'm agreeing.
No, I'm just asking the questions, Representative.
Listen, we're in Lansing, and Speaker Tate wants to be Speaker Tate again next session. And if he brings up issues, what do we have, 12 or 14 session days left until the November election? They're gonna try and get through the budget and send us home, and they don't want to bring in issues that are going to cost them votes. So Joe Tate is an intelligent man, and he knows that if he brings this up, it's going to cost him votes.
What are the issues that you think Republicans need to focus on to win? Your House candidate Republicans, what do they have to focus on to win?
We have an income tax increase this year. It went from 4.05 to 4.25. Now, it's not a lot, but over the course of the state, it's $700 million. Well, I don't think anybody looks at the state budget and says, you know what, that's a good use of my money. I think the government should have more of my money. So when we look at wind and solar siting, this is wildly unpopular. We look at the septic bill, wildly unpopular.
Septic bill.
So Michigan does not have a state septic code. There was a algae bloom in Lake St. Clair, and obviously we have a health department, but they said, no, we think the state should take it over. So I think the basic change, it's not red, blue, RD, it's should the locals be in control or should the state be in control? Well, if that's the issue, we win all day long. Nobody wants to. Wind and solar siting, they're sending it to the MPSC, which is an unelected board that's not subject to the Open Meetings Act, and they're going to make the decisions. And it's not even a decision. The bill says they shall. So go to, Colin lives in a rural area. I don't know, but I'll make this up. Colin lives in a rural area, and someone comes in and says, we're going to put in a solar farm. Oh, wait a minute, we have zoning. Well, their only option is to say yes. Well, if your only option is to say yes, you don't have an option. And the Democrats took away local control.
Does that win in Macomb and Downriver? I mean, that sounds good in northern Michigan. What about Macomb and Downriver?
But who doesn't want local control? Are you telling me that you want to send this to an unelected board in Lansing? That works everywhere in the state of Michigan.
People can eventually go to the courts and fight it.
They could.
So what's the beef?
Why not go to your township hall and talk to Bill and Susan and talk to the people that make the local? Nobody knows more about your locality than the local people. So government should be small, transparent, and local. And the wind and solar bill takes away all three of those.
How many Democrats are you close to?
Define close. I would say I'm friends with 10 of them. Do I need to name names?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to be late for the Labor Committee, so I hope Chair Hadsman is watching today. So he runs an honest committee, so if I'm late, please forgive me.
Do I need to send you a note?
Well, that would be helpful. So, there are, and again, my opinion of people has not changed since I've been in Lansing. I think people are good people. I genuinely believe that. And there are a few people on this end that are very zealous, but there are a few people on this end that are very zealous. And sometimes I think our passion gets the better of us. But I truly believe the 100 people in the middle are good people. We just look at things differently. The wind and solar, I come back to this, and I'm not trying to pound on that one issue. Their goal is not to do bad things for the state of Michigan. Their approach to it is just different than mine. I think it should be a local decision.
Do you believe this budget is going to get any Republican votes in the House when it does finally come out?
Oh, not as it is proposed right now. It's going to be tough. Again, Speaker Tate is herding cats, you know, and some of his more zealous members are threatening to vote no on the budget to get their either a promise or action on no fault. Well, that's a nuclear option. You know, be careful doing that because we all serve at the pleasure of the Speaker. Now Speaker Tate's not going to help me in my race, but there are 10 Democrats that are in vulnerable seats. So, you know, you're not going to get reelected unless Speaker Tate helps you get reelected.
At least when it came up in the House, it was 100-something amendments that Republicans had proposed. Most of them got shut down, if not all of them got shut down.
Zero.
What are the biggest things you want to see changed?
Well, you know, transparency, like in the MDOT budget. I'm on the Transportation Committee. When we had some issues 5 or 6 years ago, they said if a department head gets more than 6 weeks severance, so whatever your weekly wage is, if you're getting more than that, you have to report it. This is transparency. And they're taking that out. Why would you take that out? Why do we, again, if transparency kills the deal, then let it die. You know, I don't like that we're going to spend $3 million on e-bike subsidies, and I don't like that we're going to do this, let's do a road mileage survey for $5 million. You know, when we start adding these things up here, $1 billion here, $1 billion there, pretty soon it's real money.
Representative, we've got to get out of here, but quickly, how does Speaker Coons sound to you?
You know, I think majority. I'd be happy to be in majority. Wherever I sit, I'm going to be glad to be there.
Thank you, sir. It's good to see you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Get to that committee meeting.
Yes, yeah, I think I'm going to make it.
All right.
Good day.
Production of Off the Record is made possible in part by Martin Waymeyer, a full-service strategic communications agency, partnering with clients through public relations, digital marketing, and public policy engagement. Learn more at martinwaymeyer.com. For more Off the Record, visit WKAR.org. Michigan Public Television stations have contributed to the production costs of Off the Record.